Hello. We are gathered here today to mark, to mourn, and to celebrate the life of David Patrick Cavanaugh, husband, stepfather, mentor, cousin, friend, nephew, and so many other wonderful things. We take this time as family and friends to remember and appreciate his life, sharing together the moments that remind us of David's loving spirit. We also mourn his death, the loss of someone who has been dear in our lives, and to soothe one another through that loss. In the words of writer Corliss Lamont, the final parting signified by death is bound to bring shock and sorrow whenever ties of love and friendship are involved. Those who feel deeply will grieve deeply. No philosophy or religions ever taught can prevent this wholly natural reaction of the human heart. So today we hold both the joy in our memories of David and our sorrow at his death. And we hold each other with care and compassion, so essential as each of us travel on our own grief journey. So as we begin, I invite Ava and Tegan Kerr up to light our chalice. I'm going to be reading some words by Greg Ward. And in Unitarian Universalist spaces, we often start our time together by lighting a chalice and reflecting on words that focus our gathering for the day. So come on. You got it. So if we are lucky, we will all get a chance during our life to know someone who becomes for us an exemplar of living. And if we are really lucky, we will recognize how they ended up passing on some of their goodness to us, if we are lucky. But one thing is certain: no one, not one of us, entering this world can escape the cost of living. The price we pay is this: to live in this world, we must accept that someday we will have to die. To love what is alive, we must accept having to lose what we've made precious through our care. To be fully and fiercely human, we must accept having to be breakable and sometimes broken. When we stop to notice how their life gave us a path and a little light to see by, it helps encourage us to carry that light forward. Though each of us carries forth in this world a small flame, we know that the ability of that light to brighten the world depends upon the many others who learn to walk with it in their hearts. We light this chalice today to honor the life and living of a truly bright light, David. And I will say, in how I have come to know David through the stories that have been shared with me, I feel like Greg Ward's words are particularly accurate. Thinking about what we give to others, how they carry that forth, and just thinking about his mentorship. So I will give you a brief eulogy. And in our time together, I will speak to you a little bit about David's life. A few folks from his family will share about his life. And later, when we eat together, which hopefully we will all get to eat together, eating together is so important, more of you will have an opportunity to share. We'll have a time for everybody to share if you would like. So as I got to know David through the stories that I've heard from some of you, I often think about when I meet people after they die, I think about, wow, this was interesting, but with David, it was like, this sounds like somebody I'd really get along with. But he also sounds like somebody that a lot of people really could get along with. It does not sound necessarily specific. He sounds warm. So, some words. David Cavanaugh was born in Colebrook, New Hampshire, and would live in New Hampshire for most of his life. He was from a working-class family, his mother working eventually as a bookkeeper, his father as a milkman and electrician. His father died early in David's life, but not before teaching him many skills. His uncle Skip was a big support in David's earlier life, as well as being a presence in David's brother Steve's life. They were a working-class family in New Hampshire, and David sometimes felt like those with more money looked down on him and his family. And David also saw the opportunities that his mother and his father and his uncle Skip provided him with, and took those on with interest and enthusiasm. He also saw that his mother worked hard to give him and his brother opportunities to learn and grow through activities both in and outside of school, like going to Civil Air Patrol shows and learning the trombone. Early on in life, David learned many technical skills from his father and his uncles. Both sets of his grandparents lived nearby. He learned how to bake from his mother and his grandmothers. He would later teach himself to cook in college, according to him, because he wanted good food and didn't have a lot of money. He was also a Boy Scout when he was young, and that was particularly important to him. He was a bit of a nerd and would sometimes get bullied, but also a bit of a prankster, according to his Uncle Skip. He and his brother Steve did many things together as children and teens, and I think David liked bringing Steve along on those adventures. David would say he got from his family the Cavanaugh luck, but that the luck was actually being willing to step out of your comfort zone, was saying yes to opportunities, was helping your neighbor when they were in need. It was also living in a small town without much around and without much money. You knew you had to be able to do more for yourself. And you also had to know how to give help and ask for help when you needed it. It's interesting to me, I note that he was very much of his time in his media interests, and that he was a big fan of Star Trek. Mind you, he was also a big fan of the Beatles, of Simon and Garfunkel, of Johnny Cash, of I Love Lucy, the Muppets, Weird Al Yankovic, among just a few. But strangely, maybe not strangely, it's Star Trek that really stands out to me. While learning about David, somebody mentioned Star Trek to me and said that, like the crew of the Enterprise, David would boldly go into adventure. David boldly went into new opportunities and new possibilities. So with all I mentioned before, as he moved through his life, his technical and practical skills that he had learned from his father and his uncle over time led to him getting degrees in computing and working for IBM for over 20 years. The cooking, the baking that he learned from his mother and his grandmothers, and the cooking that he taught himself carried throughout his life. His mother-in-law, Deb, told me about asking him for cookie recipes and him sending them to her for many months, with enthusiasm and vigor. He continued in music, including singing. What I didn't mention before, there was a time when he was younger, he got second place in a talent show singing a duet with his brother. He continued playing the trombone, and then that kind of spread to all these string instruments that he played, the guitar, the ukulele, the bass, the banjo, the piano, so many instruments. And he played with the North County Community Band. He loved the library. He loved exploring books, learning more, including finding transcripts of the Mercury science missions and growing his knowledge base. He attained the level of Wood Badge in his mentorship work with Boy Scouts and took groups of youth into the wilderness for adventures and camping. So David boldly went forward in life, always growing, always understanding more. But I will say, as a Star Trek fan myself, that boldly going is not the most important thing about Star Trek. It's this focus on how we might be more caring people, how we might be better to one another, how we might live together better. And that, in hearing these stories about David, I feel like that's where David has really impacted the world. He's really impacted his family and friends. He's really impacted the community. It's where I feel he may have placed the most importance in life. Because I heard more than once about David's humility, and also that work with the Boy Scouts and having achieved the Wood Badge. Now, the Wood Badge, if you don't know, is a badge for leaders and volunteers who are working with Scouts, working with them on listening, on supporting one another, on handling conflict, on how to deal with change, on mentorship. That work was something that had been so important to him. That mentorship and care that he gave to those whom he mentored. He said that when he was volunteering, the most important thing in the world is that one youth in front of you. And that care, that listening, that how to live together permeated through so many other places in his life. His mentoring with Scouts likely impacted the mentoring he did when he was working at IBM, having an encouraging approach that also meant he stepped back a little bit and let people find their own way while he was supportive of them. In that care, that listening, that living together, really is part of his whole life. David never forgot that his mother had put him through college, even as she was unmarried after his father had died. Later in life, he called her every day, and he had a lot of sorrow when she entered a nursing home. David married 3 times, most recently to Tegan, which has been a loving and caring space for both of them. But what strikes me is that while 2 of these marriages ended, he has really had a lot of care for all of his stepchildren in all 3 of those relationships. Luna, Emery, VJ, and Vanessa, and Ava. Even in the marriages that ended, the care for those stepchildren kept going. I've heard tales most recently of him baking or fixing things with Ava, where he might hand her a blunt tool or a recipe so that she could help out. That love and care for others, I feel like, was that piece that was truly central in his life. As I'm sure those of you here are more than aware. So I thank God for the time we have had with David. I thank David for the care that he gave. And I thank you for the care and love that you gave to him. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Who have known him personally, who are part of his family. Because who better to speak to that? So in this next time, we will welcome forth first Steve, and then Skip, and then Tegan, to just give us a little bit of their memory of David.
Good afternoon. 25 months, 19 days. That's what separated David and I. I am his younger brother. So just over 2 years difference between David and I. So being that close in age, growing up in a small town, in a small house, we did a lot of things together. And it wasn't always intentional. That's just the way it worked out. For example, Scouts, Scout Camp, Church Youth Group, Model Rockets, soccer, judo team, chorus and band. But David also did other activities on his own. Drama club, science club, yearbook photographer, and as we've heard, Civil Air Patrol. I never heard him say it, but I'm sure he enjoyed activities he did on his own without his little brother around. David played trombone, bass guitar, electric and upright, six-string guitar, acoustic and electric, and many other instruments that I'm still just learning about. David introduced me to a lot of different music and musicians. Usually around 6 a.m. when the alarm clock would go off to get ready for school. He turned on the record player, yes, real vinyl, the real stuff, and put on an album. This is how I learned to appreciate John Philip Sousa and the Boston Pops. Imagine waking up to Stars and Stripes Forever. Bum, ba, 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 bum. Oh, yes, it happened. At least 2 weeks worth. Or the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, Good Morning. Sometimes. I think he also introduced me to Jethro Tull, Alice Cooper, and a few other choice performances this way. Hence the air quotes around appreciate. One album he played a lot started out with the words, learn these 4 chords, and together with, and so on. Our father had wanted to teach himself to play guitar. So he had purchased a Hal Leonard Music -1 album on learning guitar. I don't think Dad ever progressed much beyond 3 or 4 chords, but it piqued David's interest. David learned all he could from that album and maybe a few lessons from a local instructor. Did I mention that I picked up playing guitar from David playing guitar? Yet another. He started playing professionally, I guess semi-professionally, or part-time, when he was in college, and I think just after he finished college. He played as part of a trio and later played with a few bands. He managed to merge his profession with his passion of music, and he created an attachment or a device that would modulate lights based on the frequencies of the music. So basically you had a one-man light show as the band was playing on. He demonstrated this for me once, and as he called it, this is the cow, a box with 4 or 5 wires hanging off it that you plug into. That was an interesting little thing that he made. We had a common friend, also named David. Apparently that was a very popular name around the time he was born. There were 4 or 5 other Davids in his graduating class. The 3 of us would get together and just jam for a few hours. I think Mom enjoyed it most of the time, but she did ask us to lower the volume more than once. One Christmas Eve, I was home from college. David had already graduated. And the 3 of us got together in Mom's living room. She was still at work. And we started playing and passing a bottle of wild turkey around. Needless to say, David and I were in fine spirits by the time the Christmas Eve service rolled around, or we rolled around to the service. Once again, I don't think Mom was particularly pleased with us, but we certainly enjoyed singing that night. Last spring, I had a chance to get together with David, and we got out our guitars and went over some of the tunes that we used to play together. I don't think we played as well or sounded as good as we did way back when, But it was fun to jam together once more. I know it meant a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to David. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Welcome, everybody. I know a lot of you have traveled from all over this country. We have people here from Nevada. We have people here from New Hampshire. Thank you for sharing this time with us. David Patrick Cavanaugh. I'm going to give you a list of things that David was. David was the husband. He was the man, the father, the stepdad, the Boy Scout, the helper of others, the traveler, the woodworker, the dedicated son, the uncle, the grandpa, and the musician. Oh, I forgot one. He was a prankster. Oh, he pulled pranks on people. He and that little brother of his loved nothing better than to wake up people in the middle of the night with some kind of explosives. Now, I don't know what kind of explosives they had, but they blew a hole in their mother's driveway about this big around. David was all of these people wrapped up in one and served them all remarkably well. The husband, as Tegan will tell us, David was always about their lives, Ava's life, Luna, and Emery. He also had proven to BJ and Vanessa what kind of stepdad he really was. His ability to support and encourage his stepchildren is above reproach. I'm looking at an Eagle Scout, BJ, and there's no doubt that he was a positive influence for them during a very difficult time and environment they both endured. He's also demonstrated to Ava and Luna and Emery about guidance and relationships with the family. His last gift is to Ava. His brother Stephen is putting a cookbook together with all the family recipes that she can remember David by. And she so loved, he loved to cook with her. David the man. David's life values education for himself and others, kindness, gentleness, and gift of improving others during their life's journey. That was his goal. He was not a harsh person. The Boy Scout. David's involvement with the Boy Scouts began in Coburg, New Hampshire. From his own scouting days in Coburg to going to Philmont Scout Ranch, that's in New Mexico. That's the elite go there. This is where they train to become Eagle Scouts. This is a journey amongst journeys. You're not an amateur if you go to Philmont. David did that numerous times. And over and above that, you can ask VJ, David loved to camp out in the middle of the winter in the White Mountains of New Hampshire in sub-zero weather. He was great at it. I don't think he ever had cold feet. VJ did, but David didn't. The help of others. David's helped many people during his life, his family, his friends, co-workers. He taught others the value of self-control, kindness, joy, peace, patience, goodness, and faithfulness. The traveler. David traveled all over this world, both with his job and for pleasure. He's been to Australia, South America, Mexico, Canada, India, France, England, and I don't know how many more that I'm not calling out. He enjoyed learning about the cultures of these countries and the cuisine. He loved to try different foods. He had a palate, I don't know how he achieved this, but he'd eat about anything. I was trying to teach Ava how to eat a worm out there, so I put a little chocolate on it, but she didn't want to partake in that. As Jim had said about David's dedication to his mother, it was amazing. He called his mother every single day. And he'd ask her how her day was, how it was going, what she was going to do today, always with interest. You know, it was a very sad day when we finally had to put my sister, David's mom, in the nursing home. David's dad passed away at 42 years of age. David and Stephen were both very young. David was always there for his mom, and so was Stephen. Dedicated employee. David graduated from Colbert Academy and went to New Hampshire Technical in Manchester to pursue electronics. He graduated and joined Sanders Associates, and they eventually were merged by Lockheed. David became very interested in the electronics field and pursued the technology. While he was at Lockheed Martin, I was a traveling salesman, industrial, and I got a lot of speeding tickets. So he built a radar jammer for me. We had it set at 999 miles an hour. Never got stopped after that. I don't know what happened to it. Somebody probably disassembled it. You know, and from there he became a problem solver and worked for IBM. David had a great interest in helping kids. He helped the kids in Mascoma High School on the robot team. They won the state championship. That's the kind of engineering mind David had. The uncle, the grandpa, David was both that to nieces, nephews, cousins, grandnephews as well. He enjoyed the grandchildren, and he pushed them to pursue music. Every one of them that knew David, somewhere music came into the criteria. The prankster, oh, we discussed that earlier. Now, I got stories about David. If anybody wants to hear a whole repertoire of stories, we'll be glad to meet outside after this celebration of life. The woodworker. David certainly had a respect for woodworking, for power tools. Now, he clipped the end of his middle finger off trying to do a compound cut for a piece of molding. But then he went on to figure out how not to cut his fingers and finish all the finish work on their home on Meadow Lane in Enfield, New Hampshire. The musician. Stephen pretty well covered David's love for music and the joy of music. David leaves us with many enjoyable feelings and thoughts to become a better person in your life and your life's journey. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. As we heard from Stephen, David's brother, wonderful stories from his early years, and then from Skip, David's uncle, about his early to mid-adult years. Well, I met David in his later years. When I met him, I had already heard of the stories shared today and many more. But what I received was the wisdom gathered from all of his years. It took David and me a while to truly open up to each other. It started with him teaching me Command C and Command P, graduating to how to install QuickBooks and how to write off expenses. And it started with me teaching him how to sit up straight in his chair and practice regular stretching. graduating to how and when not to tuck your t-shirt into your pants, and how far up the waist pants should be. Below the belly button is what I taught him. And that hair, his beautiful, thick head, and that hair, his beautiful, full head of thick, wavy white hair. As much as he loved the Beatles, he didn't need to look like one. We complemented one another in fitting ways that worked for us. We grew together, which led us to enjoy each other's company, traveling and discovering new things, whether at home or around the world. I know he enjoyed being a road soldier, as he liked to say, but I also know what it meant for him to come home to his family. The smiles, the warmth, the love, followed by snuggles and baking. This was his favorite, and it filled him with a deep sense of completeness and accomplishment. One of the first things I noticed about David was his natural, pure excitement to teach me about computers. His tone always remained soft when I was frustrated and swore I was cursed by technology. He would shake his head and then smile and say, "Try this." "Okay, that didn't work. How about you try this?" Always calm, always collected. There was an inner calmness, an inner centering that was grounded and confidently connected to his source. The true essence of his soul made me and my young daughters feel safe. He cared for us in the ways a healthy relationship should. He molded for our girls what a gentle, kind, respectful, patient, caring, loving man looks like. I will be eternally grateful that we were able to experience this with him. I know he felt proud to be the man he always envisioned himself to be. David's spirit embodied a smart, healthy, balanced, grounded, sometimes awkwardly funny, but all around fantastic human being. His light shined through. It shined onto me and to all of you. We all felt his love and light, leaving us all to say, "David, he was such a great guy." He was a great man, a wonderful stepfather to VJ and Vanessa, helping to shape them into the amazing adults they are today. And to my girls, Emery and Luna and Ava. Solid, steady, always there when we needed him. He was a great son to Fayon and Patrick, a great brother, a great nephew, a great cousin, a great uncle, a great grandpa, a great friend, and a great husband. He was strong in this way, all the way to the end, refusing to let death take him from us. David took his last breath on December 14th at 7:56 a.m. on a windy December day. The way he died was one of the most peaceful moments I have ever witnessed, dignified and stoic to the very end. Rest in peace, David, up there in the universe, discovering the 13 dimensions or the parallel universes. Enjoy it all. But come back down once in a while to watch over us. We love you, always and forever.
Thank you all for your sharing. And we're going to welcome everybody else to share when we come together and eat together in just a moment. First, a blessing for David's life as we have taken this time to remember him together. I invite you to find a comfortable way to be in your seat for a spirit of prayer or meditation. If you are comfortable, let your eyes close or lose focus as we bless David together. Spirit of life, source of love, God of our knowing, we hold and honor David and his loving spirit in these memories we have shared today. We hold his memory, his essence, the time spent with him, the care he brought into lives here and far beyond those in this room. He is a person that has encouraged us to new adventures, who sent us recipes, who became a mentor, who cared enough not to let go of us, who was willing to come back together in a new time of life, who might have handed us a screwdriver or shown us a computer keyboard and said, "Here, do this with me, or I can help." Who showed us there are people in this world who can be trusted. We are sad that he is gone, and that sorrow is an expression of our love for him, because that sorrow comes from knowing we will not see him again by our side. But all those beautiful things that he has been in our lives will not disappear. They have happened. And while he may not be here, he has left us with these beautiful gifts. So we will grieve, and we will also give thanks for the blessing that David has been in our lives and in this world. May we hold him in our hearts as we continue our journeys, forever changed by his presence. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you to join me in this responsive reading that you will find in your orders of service. It's very simple. Mostly you will respond back with the italicized words, "We remember you." So let us speak. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, in the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, in the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, in the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, in the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, in the beginning of the year and when it ends, when we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have joys we yearn to share. So long as we live, David too shall live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. It is clear in our gathering today that David had a humble and thoughtful and caring spirit. May that humility, that care, that thoughtfulness carry forth today from this place in your memories, in your hearts, and in your actions. As we prepare to leave this time together and enter a different time together, a time of food, a time of gathering, a time of sharing. A blessing for you by Lucian Price to hold as you move forward from this space. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Our dead are lost only to be regained. When they came and went, were with us, and again were away from us. But when they died, they came to lodge with us in our heart of hearts eternally. When they lived, they could be had for cheer or comfort only in this hour or that. But dead, they live in every conscious thought and act of us, the living, who hold them in loving memory. Amen, and blessed be, and thank you. Thank you, David.